Thursday, January 18th, and we're going to actually have a somewhat entertaining day today. We get to have a kind of normal back today. We're not doing speechy things today. We'll go back to speechy things Monday. We're going to do a bit more fable-y things today and a short little story about speeches. Tomorrow, we do quiz. It is a Socratic quiz, but you're not working with the class. It's a Socratic quiz where you're just working with one other kid, where you get to pick the one person you want to work with, or if you won't want to work with anybody, you can be like, I don't like any of these weird kids, and you're welcome to work by yourself, or you can say, put me with a rando, and you're more than welcome to work with a random kid. Any of that's fine with me. And we're going to go through and get a chance to read fables tomorrow, and you're going to figure out what the morals are, and you get to work with them and help them out and stuff like that. Monday, we go back to speeches. And that's when you get a chance to stand up in front of the class and do things along those lines. But for today, before we get there, look at the new piece of paper you just grabbed from my desk, and we're going to take a look at that before you completely.
Why are there so many lines?
So this is going to be your first official speech for a grade. So again, I know kids don't like giving speeches, so that's why instead of making you do like one long speech, we do a bunch of short speeches. And so I have you guys do multiple really short ones. This first speech is only a 30-second to 1-minute speech. I just want you getting used to being up in front of the room and having to actually have a thing to say. I tried to think of one of the easiest versions of a speech I could come up with, and I figure a fable is a pretty easy one to do, because you just get to tell a story about animals, and you just have to try and teach us something, whatever you want it to be. You're going to get a total of 20 points for the assignment. 10 points for the speech, 10 points for filling out this sheet. I figure half of your grade just comes from you being able to fill this in, and that way if you mess up the speechy bits, it should not be awful for you. On this one, here's what I'm going to have you filling in. One, you've already filled in the name bit. For the moral, you get to pick whatever you want to teach us. It can be a moral that already exists, like I don't know, the size doesn't make a difference, or don't judge a book by its cover. Or you can make up your own moral, like don't lick a light socket, or don't try to 1v1 someone in Fortnite with a pistol, or whatever you want your particular moral to be. You get to pick what you want to teach us. For the characters, you have to have at least one that follows the motifs from the notes. You can have other characters in there. If you really want to have a shark, that's fine. If you want to have a donkey, that's fine. But you still have to have one animal that comes from our notes. So you're going to have at least one wolf that's a bully, or an owl that's smart, or a pig that's messy. Something to show me that you can follow directions. Your title that you're going to do, just list the animals. That's the easiest way to do a title. The monkey and the owl, or the squirrel and the bull, something along those lines. Or you can be more creative and say something like the giraffe that licked a light socket, or the monkey that learned not to use a pistol, or whatever you want your title to be. That's up to you. How long are fables supposed to be?
Short and brief.
Short. So when you look at this paper, and then you turn the paper over, and then you get all freaked out because there's a bunch of lines on there, again, fables are not long. The reason you have a lot of lines is because kids are whiny. And I've realized every time I give you a chance to write things down, some kid writes like a giant elephant on their paper with giant words, and they go, I have no room on here, whine, whine, complain, complain. So I try to give you enough room so that you can write without it being an issue. How long is yours? Long enough that you can talk for 30 seconds. For some of you, that's one paragraph. And a one-paragraph fable is long enough for you to talk 30 seconds. Others of you, you're going to need to write more than that because you talk really quickly. And so you might need to have 2 to 3 paragraphs. So it's up to you. You have to be able to talk for at least 30 seconds. You cannot talk longer than a minute or I stop you. That's all I want you to be able to do. For this, my goal is I'm grading you on your posture. Can you stand up there without wiggling back and forth and putting hands in pockets? Then you're probably going to do pretty well on it. And then making sure that you can talk for at least 30 seconds and not go longer than a minute. Also, when you fill out this paper, you get to use it for your speech to make your life a little bit easier. You get to look down at it. But here's the issue. I don't want you reading it to us. That's boring, and it's not much fun for us. So you cannot talk while looking at your paper. So you can stop, look at paper, and then continue, but you can't just sit there and read from it, because hopefully it makes it a little bit different, or at least a little bit better for us. And you can look at your paper up to twice without it costing you points. After twice, it costs you points. Again, what's the minimum length for this?
30 seconds.
You shouldn't need to look at your paper more than twice if you're talking for 30 seconds. So I'm not super worried about you looking at it. Plus, make it up. If you forget what happens in your speech, just make it up. We have no idea what you wrote about it. So you can just make up the stories in there, and that's fine with me too. I just want to give you a chance to have a thing written out and stand in front of the class and be able to talk and give a speech. And I figured this was as painless as I could go. Hi, Cameron.
So would you like, does it, so if I want it to be like, example, like Shrek, if I wanted it to be Shrek, could I like that?
So it depends, like you're creating your own fable, so you're not telling me the story of Shrek. You have to teach me something. I mean, you can make Shrek one of the characters, but you still have to have one of the motifs in there.
Spreading rumors is bad.
So, yeah, that would work. Oh, if you want to use a fable that already exists, you can, but I give you a C, because then you're not really putting work into it. But if you're fine getting a C and you just want to go copy a fable that exists, I'm fine with that. I mean, you don't get as good of a grade, but it's better than not doing anything, and so I'm happy to trade that with you. Like if you tried to do, Mr. Brovicast, mine's called The Cheetah and the Snail, and they go for a race through the desert. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'm still going to give you a C on that one, but it's better than nothing. Hi, Gia.
You said if we talk really slow, we can make it one paragraph, but on the thing it says it is in between 2 and 5 solid paragraphs.
Because that's what I figured it'll probably have to be in order for it to be that length. So, but I'm not going to really yell at you too much.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So this is not due till Tuesday because we have to finish the other speeches first. So you have till Tuesday to get it done. I'll remind you again tomorrow, and you'll forget. I'll remind you again about Monday, and you'll forget until Monday night at midnight when you freak out and write a few things down. Some of you then will finish it Tuesday on the bus, but realize if you can't read your handwriting, that makes it really fun for us watching you. So keep that in mind as we go through to try and help you out. Hi, Lucas.
Wait, do we even have to write it down if we can just remember it?
Well, remember, half your grade comes from filling this out, so no.
Oh, okay.
I know, directions, right? Crazy stuff.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. That was it. I was just giving it to you now so that you would have time to put it off until it actually comes due, but I figure there's a chance some of you may be responsible and try to get it done early.
That would be me.
Hi, Stella.
do we have to have 5 characters? Or is that just...
I don't know. Did you read the directions?
You need 1.
You can have as many as you want.
Hi, Napora.
Can we like look up balls?
Yeah. I will give you, I'll actually post them on Canvas also, and I'll give you guys hopefully examples tomorrow when we go through and do them. And so, yeah, I'm fine with you guys going through. There's just lists of morals on the internet, and you can just grab any of them, and that's fine with me.
Does it have to run?
I thought you couldn't copy them all.
You can't copy the fable. The moral you
I'm
can.
so confused.
Yeah, I picked up on that. The difference. Never mind.
Don't tell me.
What's the difference between a fable and a moral?
I don't know.
Well, that's why I stopped talking. Because I realized you didn't know, so it wasn't going to do me any good.
The moral is what you learn.
I know. It's really on the notes written right in front of you. Yeah, if you look at the notes, it says, stop reading Gia's lips and do your own work. I'm pretty sure that's what it says on it. Wait, you know what? That would be a good moral to use. We could talk.
But we're not animals.
Right, no. We're going to tell a story about the cow and the owl. And how the owl paid attention in class and knew what was going
Hey,
on.
I'm not a cow.
Not you. You're a human. I was telling a story about a random cow that didn't pay attention and know what was going on. We good to go?
That's rude.
Yeah, don't be rude, Gia, just because you're I'm a random kid over there. All right. Then, let's move on to our next thing. We're going to make fun of a kid. Specifically, this kid.
You looked at me and I got scared.
I know, it was fun. So, I know you guys get a little bit nervous when we get to speeches. So, and especially those of you doing the inquiry projects and having to get up and do the talking things. Those of you who have done it, well done. But I figured I would try to help you out by giving you a story about a kid who gave one of the worst speeches known to man.
Hey, that's you.
That is me. So I was going to go through and tell you this story to try and help alleviate some of the issues that you guys may be having. That no matter how bad your speech may be, it's probably going to be better than what this kid went through. So this is my way of trying to hype you up by telling you a horrible story that happened to this child. So, this kid, we're going to call him Mr. Brovicast, freshman year of high school. So this is 9th grade. I had been in regular English all through junior high and then somehow got placed into advanced English in high school. And I was way in over my head with a whole bunch of smarty smart kids. And I did not think I was a smarty smart kid. Plus, junior high me and high school me was not the same person you see up here. Me now, adult me, I have no problem talking all the time. Junior high me, super shy and quiet, I would have rather died than talk in front of the class. So when I got into my English class, my goal was to sit quietly in the back of the room and have no one pay attention to me, and the longer that would go on, the better. Wow. And it did go well, and I didn't have to talk, and I got to be the shy, quiet version of myself that I wanted to be. Until we got to speeches. Then I had to stand up and talk in front of the class, and I was paranoid, and I was freaking out, but I had a thing to look forward to. There was a girl in the class I had a crush on, and I lived in a nice little fantasy world, and I convinced myself that girls love dudes that give good speeches, and that if I know that now, and I've convinced myself that if I gave a really good speech, Joanna, who I had a crush on, would go out with me.
Is that my mom?
That is definitely Stella, not your mom. And so, at least I don't think so, unless we have a conversation. And so I convinced myself that I was going to give a great speech. At the end of the speech, Joanna was going to be so impressed, I was going to ask her out, and that we were going to live together happily ever after. So, what my speech was about, I had to give like the full 3 to 5 minute, like the project speech, you guys, inquiry project level speech. Mine was, do you guys know what a persuasive thing is?
Yeah, I know what that is.
Trying to persuade someone to do something.
What does persuade mean?
Will you please play Fortnite with me? I need V-Bucks.
Trying to convince someone. So we had to pick a topic that we were going to do a persuasive speech, meaning we were going to convince somebody about it. I chose animal testing, like where they test like chemicals and eye products and medicine on animals, and I was going to try and convince people that you should not do any testing on animals because they're small and fluffy and adorable, and I was like, this is going to be great. Plus, it was going to be a great way to have Joanna. I don't think my teacher would approve that one.
Yeah, but why not?
But I figured if I gave a good speech about animals, then I could then convince Joanna that I love animals, and obviously she loves animals, and we were meant to be together. Well, day of speech arrives, and to make things even better, Joanna sat in the front row, like, speechy thing here, she was here. And my teacher did not hate us as much as your teacher hates you, because I was allowed to stand behind a podium, and we got to have little note cards and stuff like that. And
we did that one time.
Day of speech, I go up to front of room, I charge kids points who get really excited and keep talking for some reason. I go up to she's the one that's having the issue. And so I had my little note cards, and my English class was first period of the day. So this is how I got to start my day.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, so I go up to the front, and I have my note cards, and I'm prepared, and I had practiced at home in front of my parents and in front of the mirror. I was feeling strong. I had written things out, and I had gone through the part of my speech where I had already talked about them testing mascara, because this is really horrible, but they end up taking rabbits, and they cut off the eyelids, and they smear makeup into the eyes to see what kind of infections they get. It's awful. And so I was going through and getting through all of that. Well, throughout the speech, I kept making eye contact with Joanna, because that's how you give a good speech. I was like, and then they would cut off the eyelids, and then I would keep going to the speech, and I'm not sure she realized, because, I mean, I wasn't trying to make it creepy. I was, like, looking around the room. I just made sure as I looked around the room, I would stop and then keep going. And so things go well. till I get to the part where I'm talking about veal.
What's that?
All right, I didn't know what veal was either. I'd heard about it. It's a type of steak that's super expensive when you go out, and I was like, ooh, super expensive steak. Well, here's what veal is. So when I did my little research as a kid, which when a baby cow is born, pops out, and as soon as it's born, before it gets a chance to stand up, they take the cow and they put it into a cage that is smaller than the cow, so it never gets a chance to stand up and is always laying down. Then it has like, you know those like hamster water bottle things? But it has that with like a little tube on it, and it sits in this little cage and just drinks this liquid, never standing up, never moves its entire life. And it just sits there and becomes basically a giant cow balloon. But because it never moves, the muscles never move anywhere, so that the meat stays super tender, which then makes it really expensive. But it is absolutely horrifying for this cow that never gets to move.
Does it taste good?
Oh, I've never had it myself, but apparently, yeah, because people pay a lot of money for it. And apparently you had it because you kept bragging. And so I was getting to the part about veal, and I knew this was like my great closer. This is like how I finished it, and I was going to blow all the kids away with it, and I was like, all right. So I make my eye contact with Joanna, because I'm like, oh, girl, you have no idea what's getting ready to happen. And I look at Joanna, and she yawns. But it's not a little yawn. She goes, like right in the middle of it, like her tongue, like that kind of, and it was enough. I'm like, and I just freak out because I realize not only am I not impressing the class, but there is no way I'm going to ask out Joanna after this if she's starting to get sleepy in the middle of my speech. And so in the middle of it, me freaking out, I do like the nervous thing with my hands, but my hands are holding on to my note cards, and I do a little shuffle thing as I'm trying to think about it, and I'm like, okay. And I look down, and then I realize I'm not on the right note card. And I go, So I go to the next note card, and that's not the right note card either. And then I go to the next one, and the whole class is staring at me, and I'm doing like this note card shuffle, and I'm realizing this is not, and I start crying in front of the class.
Hey, me too.
Now, as it's just little tears, just a little squeak out to the sides as I'm standing up here, and in my head, I'm going, oh my God, you are crying in front of this class. You are crying in front of Joanna. And I talk myself up. I'm like, come on, be a big boy. You can push through this one. So I decide maybe the class didn't notice, and I can just push through. So I decide to big boy it and just continue like there's nothing happening. And so I'm talking about the fact that they put these cows in the little cages, and I'm just going through as best I can with my speech, and I'm no longer making eye contact, but I can tell it is quiet in the room. And then I get done, and I go, and that is why we should not test on animals, and animal cruelty is bad. Thank you. And there's no clapping. It is just silent. And I just walk back to my seat, and I sit down at my desk, and I just do like a little shuffle. I'm like, shuffle, because I'm like, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, because I figure I'm going to die because I just cried in front of my entire class. And I'm sitting there, and my best friend John sat right next to me. And as I'm sitting there, I can see John staring at me. Like, I can just feel it, like right there. And I'm like, I'm not looking at you. I'm not going to make eye contact. And he's just staring at me. And finally, I'm like, okay. I look over at him, and John looks at me and just goes, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, I know. And he goes, man, how am I supposed to follow that? And I go, I don't know. And he was like, I chose politics. He was like, I can't be as emotional as you. That was incredible. And I went, what? He was like, man, you actually care about those animals. I don't care about my topic at all. And then the teacher came back and put my little grade down, and she was like, I've never had a kid be that emotional with their topic before. That was impressive. And I went, yeah, it was impressive. I didn't tell anyone that I cried because of Joanna. I let them all believe I cried because I was very emotional about animals. And so they continued to bring this up the entire rest of the time I was in high school. Whenever time there was a speech, they were like, oh my God, you're going to cry like Broviac because he's good at speeches. And I'm like, no, I'm good at getting my heart broken by the girl I have a crush on yawning in the middle of things and pushing through it. Joanna, apparently they're not as girls are not as impressed by guys that give really good speeches as you might have thought. Apparently that was not a thing that made her come flocking to me.
That was a really good speech.
So
You go, girl.
I tell you this for two reasons. One, no matter how bad you think your speech is going to go, it is not going to go as badly as you probably breaking down crying in front of a class when the girl you have a crush on has it. And then
Stella can talk. I mean, I was literally.
we also have the idea that if things don't go your way and fall apart, fake it. I had no idea that by just pushing through to the end that I was able to get away with it, but apparently if you fake it, there's every chance that people might just think that you know what you're doing while you're up here. So make believe and pretend you're good at a speech, and maybe that's enough. Have I had kids cry during speeches? Yeah, absolutely, quite often. My favorite one was a girl named Amber, who was in my advanced class, and Amber stood up in front of the class, looked around at everybody, and just went and just started crying. And I was like, oh, like yesterday's speech, like the very first time, like she even volunteered to go. And I go, oh, do you need a minute? I'd never had a kid cry like that. And she went, no, I'm good. And I went, what? And she goes, okay. And then she just gave her speech, crying in front of the entire class the whole way through. And I was like, oh, okay, that was unexpected. And then her next speech, same thing. Stood up in front of the class, crying, tears coming down her face, just talked through the whole thing. She ended up giving like 4 speeches over the course of the unit, cried through every single one of them. And I was like, girl power, you go. It was impressive. So, I mean, after a while, when we got to like the 4th one, the class was just like, all right, it's Amber's speech again. And she would get up there and just cry, and we just ignored it, and it was fine. Weird, but it was something. So, those were my experiences with speeches, and hopefully that helps things not be as awful for you. All right. To help you get ready for your speechy thing, I'm going to talk about fables real quick. With the notesy things, on here, this is the part I care about. What is it every fable has to have?
Moral.
What characters do we use?
Animal.
How long are they? What type of tone do they have?
Honey.
And what ages?
Old men.
When I grade your fable, that's what I'm looking for. Do you have a moral? Did you use animals? Is it fairly short? Is it entertaining? You should be good to go. That's what I want from yours. On this part, what's oral tradition?
When you pass it down by word through stories.
And
through
what
people.
happens to stories?
They get messed up.
That's why we use fables as our first big speech. Change yours. If you write down one particular thing, and when you get up to give your speech, your brain goes completely blank, change it. Make it up. I'm fine with that. If you change yours, we'll just say oral tradition. It's also why if Lucas wants to do one about the owl and the cow, and Emery wants to do one about the owl and the cow, you can both do the exact same one. You're going to tell the story different. If you and your friend both want to use the exact same moral, I'm fine with that. You're going to eventually tell different stories when you stand in front of the class. Even if they're written the same, when you get up to talk, you're still going to tell stories differently. So that's why it doesn't bother me when your speech, if you have similar stuff to somebody else. Oral tradition, things are going to change. And then finally, motifs, just making sure. On the right-hand side of your paper, you have to have one of these animals in your story. So make sure you have at least one in your story. Stella?
Well, we take away points if our paper, because we have to turn the paper and the speech. What if the story on our paper doesn't match?
I'm okay with that. They can technically, honestly, be 2 completely separate things. I'm fine with that too. Because basically on this one, I'm just grading you on making sure you can follow my directions and get it set up. But then if you want to do a whole different speech, I'm fine with that. I'm more worried about you guys being able to get up and talk in front of class. Alright. Then, you can put both those papers away. I figured this way you don't have to try and pack up at the end of class. We're done with those papers. I have another thing I'm going to do with you, but you don't need the papers, and this hopefully makes things a little bit easier.
You're my entry project thing. I completely made up.
Lucas,
Did you? Look at that, working on your speeches already.
It was him and Julian.
I I said.
Remember, you're on film.
Does she ever watch these?
I don't know. I'm just making sure that you're aware that there's a camera going before we
He
say
made
something.
it all up. He didn't do it.
I did.
You did not test Julian's family. You pulled that right out of your arm.
And then.
He has data to back it up, right?
Wait, yeah, his data wasn't on the board.
Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't.
So look.
Yeah, what was your control group again?
The amount of lavender.
No, it was people sleeping not having lavender tea and lavender oil. That's what it should have been.
And then it was like salt. I said that the anti-dolics or whatever go to your brain, go through your veins and soothe the nerves.
You were just invested.
So,
Stop it, you stressed me
to
out.
get you guys ready for tomorrow's quiz and next week's speechy thing, I want to go through and take a look at a couple more fables with you. I'm going to read a fable, and then tomorrow, you have to be able to figure out what the moral is. So, I left the moral off of this one, although I think I chose a fable that some of you guys know.
The Lion King?
The Lion and the Mouse. There's two versions of it. One where a lion gets like a thorn stuck in his paw, and then one where a lion gets caught in a trap. And so,
The trap.
this is the one where he gets caught in a trap, but they're similar to each other. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to see if you can figure out what type of fable it is, and then figure out what the moral is that goes with it. All right. The Lion and the Mouse. Once, when a lion was asleep, the little mouse began running up and down upon him. This soon wakened the lion, who placed his huge paw upon him and opened his big jaws to swallow him. "Pardon, O King of the Jungle," cried the little mouse. "Forgive me this time, and I shall never forget. Who knows but I may be able to do you a turn one of these days?" The lion was so tickled at the idea of the mouse being able to help him that he lifted up his paw and let him go. Some weeks after this, the lion was caught in a trap, and the hunters who desired to carry him alive to the king tied him to a tree while they went in search of a wagon in which to carry him. Just then, the little mouse happened to pass by, and seeing the sad condition in which the lion was caught and tied, went up to him and soon gnawed away the ropes that bound the king of the beasts. "Was I not right?" said the little mouse. But for the moral, what type of fable is it?
Traditional.
How do you know it's not verse?
Cause it's not rhyming like Eminem.
How do you know it's not modern?
It's not old.
Pardon, O King of the Jungle.
Now, I had people argue earlier that it does say king, wagon, and trap. Does that make it modern?
No, because there's like medieval times.
Yeah, that was my issue. I was like, we've had wagons since we've had wheels, and we've had kings since the first people got into a fight. So you'll know when it's a modern one, like it should be obvious it is modern. So this one is traditional, unless there's something that obviously make it modern. Now on this one, for tomorrow, you have to be able to figure out what we're supposed to learn. Do you know what we're supposed to learn from this one?
Don't be a bully.
How does that connect?
I don't know.
Me either. Ben,
Give people second chances.
how does that connect?
The lion gives the mouse another chance.
It's the golden rule.
Which
people
is,
The
how you-
golden rule is
Treat people how you want to be treated.
how does that connect?
Because he treated the mouse really nicely and let him go, and the mouse gnawed away the rope, so he's free.
I can dig that one. One of the things I'm going to tell you for tomorrow is, like, their moral is little friends may prove to be great friends indeed, which is not what you
All
guys
people
said.
matter.
But I think your morals work. Tomorrow, when we do it, I'm going to give you multiple choice. Like, you'll have like 5 different ones to choose from, and you'll have like 3 that are obviously wrong, 1 that could be kind of right, and 1 that should be obviously right. And so that's my goal, is you to just read through them and figure out which one is which. But nicely done. This next one was written by a past student for their homework, and I decided to steal it.
Oh no.
You should be able to figure out what the type of fable is right away.
By Ashley.
Traditional.
Wait, is that the
tortoise
one
and
that
hare.
matters?
How do you know it's verse?
Because it's written as a poem.
Yeah, it's written as a poem. So looking at it, you should be able to figure out it's a verse fable just from being able to look at it. I'm going to attempt to rap this at you.
Oh yeah.
Let's see how it goes. This was written by past student Ashley Mitchell. It says, "The Tortoise and the Hare." If you want to do a verse fable for yours, you're welcome to. If you do a verse fable, you can actually use an already existing fable, and I don't count you off. Because I figure writing it as a poem is tough enough as is. If you use an existing one, I don't cards that against you, but only for verse fable. There was a hare just hopping by, and right then a tortoise caught his eye. He said, hi, tortoise, how are you? I bet I'm faster than you. The tortoise said, oh, no contraire, I'm much faster than a hare. The hare said, fine, we'll take a test. I'll show you I'm the very best. They stood behind the starting line, while the hare thought, this race is mine. Bang! That was the gun, now go. The hare took off and stubbed his toe. Oh, well, who cares? He is too fast. He knew the tortoise would be last. He tripped and skipped along that track, but he could not stop looking back. The tortoise was not anywhere. He just was too slow for the hare. As he finished, he could see something standing by the tree. It was the tortoise. He had won. The tortoise said that race was fun. Then he laughed in the hare's face. And the last line is,
He had just won.
The tortoise had just, the hare had just run away.
the last line is the moral. What was the moral of this one?
Slow and steady wins the way.
There you go.
Wins the race.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Good job,
The
guys.
moral?
So if we do the verse one, we can just like copy down the poem that's like already.
Not
Wait, could I
poem.
copy down
You
that?
can like do the tortoise and a hare.
You
but
can
as
use a
Wait,
fable
can I do
that
a
already
poem?
exists, but you have to change it into your own poem.
Bro.
You can't copy a poem that already exists.
Like
That's
the
just
horse and the
full-on
hare
cheating, and I
wasn't-
get to fail you.
Hey,
But if
but
you
how
want to take a fable that exists and turn it into one, that's fine with me. And
Bell.
without even looking at this one, we've done traditional, we've done verse. This one's going to be nicely done. Modern! Unfortunately, we're not going to get a chance to get to it because the bell's going to ring in about 30 seconds. So, hi, kids standing up. How are you? Tomorrow you will be. Hi, kids standing up who forgot. Now, Aaliyah, I can forgive. She's new, but other kids in this class who I would get a chance to be mean to, silly children. He's sitting on top of his desk because he has over 20 points in the back of his room. You're not in the back. What's that kid in this
I have 20
direction?
points, though.
Are you in the back of the room?
No.
Directions.
Well, this
There's a-
way.
Boy, are you?
Shh, just nod your head. Uh-huh.